I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal. In a few moments, I will sign a presidential memorandum to begin reinstating U.S. nuclear sanctions on the Iranian regime. We will be instituting the highest level of economic sanction. Any nation that helps Iran in its quest for nuclear weapons could also be strongly sanctioned by the United States.
Back in 2015, the United States made one of the most important foreign policy deals in modern history, a deal with Iran. Focus on one thing, nuclear weapons. And just 3 years later, it was gone.
Imagine a miniature sun, nearly 4 kilometers in diameter, blazing in the heart of a city for 10 seconds. That is what a nuclear explosion's fireball would feel like. This is actual footage from a nuclear test, where you can see how the paint on a school bus, positioned several kilometers from the fireball, ignites instantly from the intense heat. Imagine the damage such intense heat could inflict on human skin.
So what happened? To understand the Iran deal, you first have to understand the problem. For years, the United States and its allies believed that Iran was moving closer to developing a nuclear weapon. And that raised a serious concern, not just for the United States, but for the entire world. Because once one country in a tense region develops nuclear weapons, others may follow. And now, you're not dealing with one nuclear power, you're dealing with several. That's how instability spreads. This is what made Iran such a focal point. It's not just about one country, it's about what that country represents in a larger global system. The fear was simple. Without some kind of agreement, this situation could escalate into conflict or even war. So, in 2015, under President Barack Obama, the United States joined several world powers, including countries in Europe along with China and Russia, to create an agreement with Iran. This became known as the Iran nuclear deal. The idea was straightforward. Iran would limit its nuclear program, and in return, the United States and its allies would lift economic sanctions. That meant Iran agreed to reduce its stockpile of enriched uranium, limit how much enrichment it could do, and allow international inspectors to monitor its nuclear facilities.
Initially, only 5 nations possessed nuclear weapons. At the peak of the Cold War, the 2 major powers, the United States and the Soviet Union, held a combined stockpile of over 50,000 nuclear warheads. Both sides understood that if one country used nuclear weapons, it would lead to total destruction of both. Even if all leadership in a country were eliminated in a devastating first strike, automated systems like the dead hand system would ensure the enemy country's destruction. This idea of mutually assured destruction, MAD, acted as a powerful deterrent, preventing the use of nuclear weapons and, to some extent, the Third World War. Today, however, the situation has changed. At least 9 countries are now confirmed to have nuclear weapons, with 1 more suspected to possess them. This means multiple leaders across the globe have their hands on the trigger. If ever backed into a corner, the risk of one of them pulling the trigger is very high.
The details of this deal matter very much. That's why our team worked so hard for so long to get the details right. With this deal, we cut off every single one of Iran's pathways to a nuclear program, a nuclear weapons program. And Iran's nuclear program will be under severe limits for many years. Without a deal, those pathways remain open. There would be no limits to Iran's nuclear program, and Iran could move closer to a nuclear bomb. With this deal, we gain unprecedented, around-the-clock monitoring of Iran's key nuclear facilities, and the most comprehensive and intrusive inspection and verification regime ever negotiated. Without a deal, those inspections go away, and we lose the ability to closely monitor Iran's program and detect any covert nuclear weapons program.
The deal signed in July stipulates that US and European sanctions against Iran will be lifted in return for a reduction of Tehran's nuclear facilities to prevent it from developing atomic weapons. In its latest assessment this month, the head of the UN's nuclear watchdog agency said Iran is on track.
In exchange, sanctions were lifted, and those sanctions have been significant. They restricted Iran's ability to sell oil, access global banking, and participate fully in the world economy. So lifting them meant Iran regained access to billions of dollars and re-entered the global markets. Supporters of the deal said this was the best way to prevent Iran from building a nuclear weapon without going to war. But critics saw it differently. They argued the deal didn't go far enough, that it only delayed the problem and gave Iran resources that could expand its influence in the region. So while some saw it as diplomacy, others saw it as risk. Then came 2018. President Donald Trump announced that the United States would withdraw from the deal. He called it a bad deal. He argued that it didn't permanently stop Iran, it didn't address other concerns like missile development, and it gave too much away for too little in return.
And it's a horrible agreement for the United States, including the fact, Mr. President, that we gave Iran $150 billion and $1.8 billion in cash. Nigeria would like some of that. $1.8 billion in cash. And $150 billion. You know what we got? We got nothing. I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal. In a few moments, I will sign a presidential memorandum to begin reinstating U.S. nuclear sanctions on the Iranian regime. We will be instituting the highest level of economic sanction. Any nation that helps Iran in its quest for nuclear weapons could also be strongly sanctioned by the United States.
This stealth warship has been launched by Iran. That as tensions with arch-enemy, the United States, are on the rise. The Iranian Navy launched the domestically made Sahan destroyer in a ceremony of pomp and circumstance on Saturday.
Ya Hussein!
State media says it has radar-evading stealth properties and electronic warfare capabilities, and can take on 5-month journeys without refueling. It has a flight deck for helicopters, torpedo launchers, and anti-ship guns. US President Donald Trump pulled out of an international agreement on Iran's nuclear program back in May and reimposed sanctions on Tehran. Trump said the deal was flawed because it didn't include curbs on the country's development of ballistic missiles or its support for proxies in Syria, Yemen, Lebanon, and Iraq. The US goal is to cut Iran's oil exports to zero. Iran has hit back, saying that if it can't export, then no other country will be allowed to export oil through the Strait of Hormuz at the mouth of the Gulf.
So the United States pulled out and reimpose economic sanctions. And almost immediately, things began to shift. Tensions increased. Iran began stepping away from parts of the agreement, and the situation became more uncertain. So today, the real question isn't just what the deal was, it's this. Did canceling it make the world safer or more unstable?
This is all part of this growing pressure on oil production that we're seeing because the Iranians have attacked ships around the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow mouth of the Persian Gulf through which about a fifth of all oil and natural gas passes. Because of this disruption, those big tankers can't get out, and that's trapping in the production that's needed in this region for global energy.
Because when it comes to global politics, decisions like this don't just affect one country. They affect all of us. But the details tell a more nuanced story. The original deal under Obama was built around limitation. What's being discussed now in Trump's 15-point plan appears to go further than that, at least in terms of what's being asked. It's important to understand these are still negotiations. Nothing has been finalized, and Iran has already pushed back, calling some of the terms one-sided. This isn't just about a nuclear program anymore. There's an active conflict. There are global shipping routes at risk, including the Strait of Hormuz. So any agreement now may also need a ceasefire and broader regional stability. One was designed to manage the risk of a war through diplomacy. The other is trying to exit a war before it gets worse.
Well, look, with the war about to hit its fifth week, Errol, President Trump's feeling pressure even from some of his own party to bring the conflict to a close. And for the first time, he's revealing how he knows Iranian leaders are ready to negotiate.
They want to make a deal.
Insisting Iran is, quote, begging to bring an end to the war.
I say they're lousy fighters, but they're great negotiators.
President Trump rejected reports he's the one desperate to make a deal.
I'm the opposite of desperate. I don't care.
The president said he's postponing attacks on Iran's infrastructure for 10 days at Iran's request.
They asked for 7. You're going to say, oh, Trump's a terrible negotiator. They asked for 7. And I said, I'm going to give you 10.
But with Iran denying any direct talks and mocking the U.S. as negotiating with yourself, he says the move proves the people he's talking to have power to control the key shipping corridor Iran has effectively closed off for almost a month. Oil tanker traffic is down 90 to 95% since before the war. Economists now expect U.S. inflation to jump to more than 4% this year because of the conflict. Mortgage rates moved higher for the 4th straight week, while mortgage applications are down. Global oil prices are up more than 40%, and the American cost of gas is up by almost $1 per gallon in the last month.
So tell me, which one do you think works better? Let me know in the comments. And if this helped you see it differently, subscribe and follow for more content like this.